Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode. This is a collaboration episode between The More You Know by Brian Yu and the Anonymous Hedgehog podcast, which is by me, Rich, and Maya. So before we begin, let's just introduce our two podcasts. Brian, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about The More You Know?
Yeah, so I created The More You Know with the intention of teaching people and educating people on little small facts that you shouldn't even know, but it's good to know. Because if there's anything that I've realized throughout my life is that the best way to relate to people is to relate with something of their interest. So the more small facts that you know, there's a good opportunity for you to connect with them. And I found this really helpful throughout my life as I built a lot of my good relationships by just starting conversations by knowing something really, really small. And I even got some job interviews in the past just because I knew something really random.
Awesome. I love that mindset of just finding common ground on these little details to get to make these valuable connections. We love that. Our podcast, Anonymous Hedgehog, is very similar. We basically discuss any topic, whether it's something as superficial as brushing your teeth in the morning, and we try to derive the meaning of it from almost a philosophical standpoint. And we just delve deep into these topics and try to learn new things through our discussions.
Yeah, I like that. That's something that I kind of wanted to step into too, and in my segments on my podcast called Focus Fridays.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm so glad that we're able to collaborate on this episode here, and I'm so excited to just start talking to you. So I know you mentioned earlier that you're really into fitness, and me and Maya are also getting into fitness this year. And I just wanted to ask you, what got you into fitness to begin with? How has your fitness journey sort of morphed over the years? And what really draws you into the fitness industry?
Yeah, certainly. So my fitness journey really started in middle school, let's say 7th grade. My sister, she ran track, and when the middle school track team would practice, we would be outside with the high schoolers. And I noticed that a lot of people around me were athletes, and that made me feel the odd person out because I was not an athlete at that time. And at that time, any kid who wanted to get into fitness they wanted to get a six pack, and that was my mindset because I was like, well, maybe I can attract some girls if I get a 6-pack. So I reached out to my friend Connor Nolan. He was the most fit kid in our school, and I said, "Can you show me how to get abs?" And he took me under his wing. I went to his house, and he provided me with protein shakes, and we did some of his workouts. And from there, I just got hooked because there's no better feeling than waking up the next day sore, but just noticing fast results, which is kind of standard for beginners if you're starting to work out. But ever since then, that kind of just drove me to wanting to work out more because I was seeing developments in my arms and every single muscle part. And then fast forward to high school, I got more serious in high school because that's when I was surrounded by upperclassmen who caught notice of my results. So then I started working out with some of the upperclassmen, and now my good friend Thomas, he's kind of my big brother to me now because he mentored me throughout the process, and he's the one that got me really serious into working out as I started looking more into my diet and doing more research about supplements. And that's when everything just took off. Is when I did more research and got more serious about it, started tracking my macros, started going to the gym consistently. And then the funny thing about fitness and bodybuilding is that everyone starts off mostly with the common goal of if you're a dude, you want to get a 6-pack to attract girls, or you just want to lose weight. And throughout throughout that journey, you find a lot about yourself. You develop a different mindset, because when you prove to yourself that if you do something consistently every single day, then you can achieve whatever goal that you want. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah, I think I really relate to that. It's just like in the beginning when I kind of started my fitness journey, I was just like, the whole thing is like I wanted, like abs, and I wanted to have flat stomach to like, just so I could look at myself and I could wear nice clothes. And it was very much the physical aspect of it and wanting to impress other people as well. But I think that along like the fitness journey, when you do it for a year or like 6 months even, you do learn so much more about yourself, and you realize that there's so much more to fitness than just looking a certain way. And I think that, I think a friend pointed this out to me. It's just like when you start to work out, you realize that you don't get tired. For example, walking up the stairs, you don't get tired. Your body actually has, there's a more utility to it rather than just looking good. And I think that that is one of the more productive things that I've gotten out of doing fitness as well.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Because when I started like working out consistently every day, I found myself having more energy to do things, and like rest days for me were really boring for me, and that's when I just wanted to occupy myself with something, and that goes with that's connecting like my blog and the podcast with it, because if you start something by yourself and then you just go consistently about it, then growth will come. And I have to thank like working out to like giving me this like mindset of teaching me to be patient and just not to expect results as soon as I start.
Right. That is such a good point. And I feel like I've related to that very feeling for like the longest time, but I just couldn't put it into words. And that was just a great way to put it into words properly. But I think for me, it's like I've just been working out so consistently now that if I am in a vacant position and I'm not really doing much, I'm just more motivated to do other things that might not even have to do with working out at all. So, for example, with your blog and your podcast, on your rest days, you felt like you should be taking up that extra time that you have because you're not working out, doing something productive. And I feel the exact same way.
Yeah. I just started watching Casey Neistat's vlogs again, and just watching him, and I feel like I relate to him so much because he's always wanting to work. He hates Fridays and he loves Mondays, and that's the same way that I am too. Because for me, I loved going to school because I had a routine down. I was busy all day, and the best time is when I finally get to come home at like 9 or 10, and I take a shower and I'm able to relax, and I know that the next day I'm going to be doing productive stuff.
I definitely feel that way too, where like I'm kind of, I guess what people would call more of a workaholic, where it's like I genuinely like feel like I don't know what I'm supposed to do if I don't have something to do. So like I think in the beginning of this whole quarantine situation, I was just very anxious because like I was like, wow, like I don't have anything to do with my life anymore, right? And I had to kind of make small projects, and this podcast was actually something that came out of that. It was just like I needed something to do to keep myself busy. Otherwise, I was just kind of felt like time was passing by and you're just wasting all this time that you could be being productive.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt too. But the one thing that I did learn a little bit too is just telling myself that it's okay to have days where I don't do anything, because the worst thing that you can do is burn out. So having a couple days or a day or two for me, because I follow this 2-day rule, but I like to spend like a day or two just not doing anything, so I can at least, let me rephrase that. I like to spend like a couple days every 2 or 3 weeks not doing anything, because if you are constantly on the go, you can burn yourself out, and then that will make you stop having like passion for doing something, and that's something that I don't want to happen, because I genuinely do enjoy podcasting with people. I do enjoy writing fitness articles for people, but I have to make sure that I have time for myself and my relationships.
That's an interesting point. And I've actually been seeing this a lot, especially during this pandemic, with people saying things like, if you haven't learned at least 5 new skills by the end of this pandemic, then you're not doing anything meaningful with your life. And I totally agree with your mindset that it's not about just stacking on as many things as possible. It's more about just having a lifestyle that allows you to learn as much as possible while not burning out.
Yeah, it's honestly all about the balance between all of it. And right now, I think I have a good balance of like, I found like that perfect balance of balancing everything, that I can still maintain a really like healthy and social lifestyle, but I'm able to get work done too, and still keep my passion for it.
You mentioned you follow a 2-day rule. I was wondering if you could explain what that is a little bit, because I know that for me, at least, like I am more hesitant to take breaks, because I feel like when I take a break, like I say, like, oh, today I'm not going to do anything. But like I find that it's very, very easy, especially when there's not someone holding me accountable, like a boss or like a superior or something, that like one day can turn into 2 days, and 2 days can easily turn into 3 days, and then after and then you've gone a whole week without doing anything. I feel like for me, that's like a very kind of slippery slope to go down when I decide to take a break. So I was wondering if you can explain your 2-day rule and like kind of how that keeps you accountable for doing the things that you need to get done.
Yeah, so for me, I follow a various amount of YouTubers on YouTube, and one of the YouTubers that I follow his name is Matt D'Avella. And he pointed out one thing that really caught my eye in one of his videos, and it was his 2-day rule. Mm-hmm. So he allows himself 2 days off from like a rest day, or like from like not doing like any type of task. So that task can be like flossing or just like something really, really small. And he knows that after 2 days of not doing something, then it's really easy to cut that habit out of your life. So, for example, for me, I find myself, if I don't floss for like 3 days, then I can find myself not flossing for the whole
exactly
the whole entire week. And this kind of is really helpful to me now, because I told myself that I wanted to start running every single day, well, like a couple times a week. So I don't allow myself more than 2 days off from running, even if I don't feel the greatest. Because if I find myself not running after 2 days, I find myself not running for the whole week. And I just kind of am more prone to like falling out of that specific habit. So I keep myself to a 2-day rest break of not doing a specific task.
That's interesting. And I think it works the other way around as well. Like doing something for more than 2 days kind of ensures that you're going to continue doing it for the whole week. So like not just with breaks, but like if I do tend to work out for more than 2 days in a row, then it's like, okay, cool, I'm on pace. I can take a rest day, and I know that it's not going to interfere with my entire week's worth of working out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me right now, I think I have a good schedule for myself. I work out Monday and Tuesday, and then I have Wednesday off, which is really nice because I can do other work in the meantime. And then I work out Thursday and Friday, and then I have the weekend off to hang out with my girlfriend or just hanging around. But Sundays for me are usually like really busy for me because I have to do my groceries, meal prep, edit the podcast usually, and make new pins for Pinterest.
Yeah. So how do you find, I guess, the time to work out? Because like, how would you advise someone, let's say, that wanted to fit working out into their schedule, but kind of like, let's say they wouldn't have the time? Because I find that, on days that I like term my rest days that I wouldn't work out, I find that like you do have a lot more time, even if you weren't actually working out for that long in the first place. Because like when you're doing a task, there's kind of like a 15-minute on each side, like grace period. Like you have to transition into the task, and then you have to transition your mind out of the task. And I feel like for working out, that's kind of like the biggest obstacle to me is that just, if I'm working out for like an hour, that really means an hour and a half to like get ready, and to take a shower like before and after. And so like, kind of how do you manage that, like that time management and kind of switching in between tasks efficiently?
Yeah. So for me, I usually get home from work from like 5, and I start my workout around 6. And I give myself that hour to to just relax a little bit and eat something for my pre-workout meal. But for me, I found that it's really helpful to just not stop moving. So when I get home, I have to do whatever I need to do, but I don't allow myself to lay down for more than 30 30 minutes, because if I find myself laying down for more than 30 minutes, I just get comfortable, and then you lose that like energy and like motivation to like work out. So I keep myself moving. I clean dishes. I do whatever that needs to be done, and I'm moving around. So I keep that energy high.
Yeah, I definitely find that we're like sometimes. Sorry, not to interrupt you, but like sometimes where I'll have a lot of motivation. I'm like, oh, I'll do this in 5 minutes, and I sit down, and then after you sit down, you just don't want to get up anymore. And it's like all the motivation that you once had, the energy is just gone out of your body once you sit down for like 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I just keep moving, so I can keep up the pace of keep up like the energy that I had during the work day. But then, what?
Yeah. To me, I think that the idea of keeping moving is one that's really interesting, because it's the whole concept of like momentum throughout your day.
Yeah.
And like just taking a break kind of breaks that momentum and sort of stops you from wanting to continue on. For me personally, one thing that also inspires me to like continue to work out is just looking forward to different exercises. So for example, for me, I set like 2 different muscle groups each day, and I try to take a break or a rest day like 2 days a week, and I write down the different muscle groups either in advance or I come up with them on the day of, depending on how sore I'm feeling from the previous days. And I think that for me just really motivates me, because if it's like, oh, it's chest day today, like I'm so excited, I haven't gotten to hit chest in like 3 days, so it's something I look forward to, versus if it's like the same workout that I'm doing every single day, like you would tend to get bored of it and it gets really monotonous. So do you have a similar way of sort of being inspired and staying motivated to continue to work out? And do you find different muscle groups more or less exciting than others?
Do I? Yeah. I definitely feel more excited to do shoulders and chest as opposed to like legs and back for me. Because leg days, no one really likes leg day ever. But but yeah, those 2 are probably my favorite, because like I just like the feeling of like after your workout and how you feel and how you look.
Yeah, I think the concept of momentum that Rich was talking about, I think it applies to kind of like your life in general, not just working out. And the thing you were talking about, just keeping moving, I feel like this applies to just your career or like anything else that you're doing. Because I find that, like, let's say you take a year off or you take like a week off from work, I feel like it puts like a halt in kind of your momentum that you were doing. And that's why, again, like why I'm kind of hesitant to take breaks when I'm doing something, because I'm very kind of scared of losing that sort of momentum that was keeping me going and getting all the work done.
Yeah, I totally agree, because when I first started my website, that was like 4 years ago, I was really consistent with it. And this was during like the summer before college. And once I got into college, it kind of just ruined my momentum, because I had to like throw in like school work, and that ruined my momentum for my blog, and I'm kind of sad that happened. But it's all about adjusting to changes, which I kind of didn't do because like so much was being thrown at me at once.
Yeah, it's hard to be flexible, especially with things like a podcast or a blog that are totally on your own schedule and no one's really monitoring you through it. That's very difficult. And also one thing me and Maya were talking about with one of our other podcast episodes was like just having the motivation to continue something like a blog. So for me personally, I run a different blog as well, but it's about tech. It's not about fitness. And one of the biggest motivating factors is like how many views my blog has gotten and how many people are like looking at it and if it's even gaining popularity, because sometimes it feels like, you know, if you're putting so much work into like creating a platform and making videos, making episodes, making blog posts, and no one's really there to watch it or listen or consume, it's really demotivating. So how do you handle that with your podcast and your blog as well?
Yeah, I can definitely tell you that I check my analytics for my blog and my podcast every single day at least like 20 times, which is
Really
horrible. Like I don't like that I do that, but I'm just so like anxious to see like, okay, who's listening, who's not listening. But for me, I've kind of accepted the fact that you don't gain popularity that quick, and especially with podcasting and blogging nowadays, it's such a saturated market that you just have to keep consistency, because there are going to be people who are staying consistent for a while, but eventually a lot of podcasters, I like from a statistic that I've read, that a lot of podcasters just fall off the brick, and there's a lot of podcasters with the name The More You Know, and they're not podcasting anymore, and like they stopped after like 5 or 6 episodes. And I know that if I keep going and staying consistent, that I will eventually reach like a higher like ranking, which I've kind of seen in the Apple Podcasts when I search up my podcast now.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like, it's a good rule for marketing. It's a good rule for business. Also just a good rule kind of to keep in general for life. It's just like, Rich and I talked about a lot about this concept of delayed gratification, which is just like, it actually like builds character to be able to be patient and to wait, because like the longer, it's almost like they did this psychological study where like the longer that people were able to wait for gratification, the more successful that they were in life.
Yeah, because I follow a lot of like tech entrepreneurs from like Facebook and all that, and every single quote that you hear them say is that you have to be consistent with it, and success is not going to come overnight. And if you watch documentaries on like their journey of like how they got to where they are now, it took them years. They've been rejected, they've been humiliated, they've gone through it all. And from that point, I kind of just look up to those people now, and I kind of accepted the fact that life is a long game, and you can't expect success overnight, or you can't expect everything so fast. So I've kind of just come to live with it, that it's going to take a long time. But it definitely helps that if you like what you do. And I can say for podcasting, I have learned to love podcasting, even though I thought that I was pretty awkward. I think I still am kind of awkward for some of my podcasts. But it's just being able to connect with people and learn something new from them, and just having that awkwardness fade away, because like when you meet someone new, it's always awkward at first. But with podcasting, for podcasting, I learned that it just removes that awkwardness away, because you're interviewing them and it's not really that awkward.
Yeah. I mean, even with just this podcast right now, like it feels like I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
You're like a longtime friend, because we've just immediately straight delved into like the deep conversations and sort of skipped like the small talk type of thing. And there's been a lot of talk recently about people just calling out small talk as something that's useless and how society needs to shift away from small talk. And I think it's just an interesting concept, because it's almost as if everyone wants to just jump into these deep conversations, but there's no real segue to do so without small talk.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think small talk is a wonderful thing because if you dive right into business, then that's always going to call for like a very one-sided relationship with someone. But if you dive into small talk with someone, you get to learn stuff about what they like on like the side. So like if you're talking business and you have small talk with your coworkers, you know what they like outside of work, and that's something that you can build upon and kind of like build your relationships with.
That's kind of interesting that because I feel like I have the opposite view of small talk where like I almost find it completely useless, or maybe I'm just a more socially awkward person where I don't like. I feel like it sounds weird, but it's like, for example, if I'm meeting someone for, a business meeting or something, like, I'm like, oh, I don't really care how your kids were, or like, I don't really care about your son's presentation yesterday and like what his teacher said. Like, it doesn't matter to me, right? I just kind of I almost view social interactions very transactionally, where like, like I need this piece of information from you. And so like the faster that I can get it, the faster that I can move on with my day. I don't know if that's like something that's weird or like that's just like,
oh no, that's not weird at all. Like small talk is good with certain people, I should say. With other people, then it can get kind of funky, but it's like depending how it's kind of like the energy that they give off to you, depending if you want to engage in small talk or not.
Yeah, it really does depend, because there's times when people try to make conversation and it's like, why are you talking to me? Like, I don't want to be here. And then there's other times where it's like you don't really know someone, but you kind of want to get to know them, and in that case, small talk is great. And you mentioned energy. I think that's a really good segue to talk a little bit about meditation and sort of finding your own energy levels. There was a period of time when I kind of got into meditation for a little bit, and it was hard for me to just focus on doing nothing. Like we talked earlier about how all three of us are sort of in that mindset of keeping our momentum going, and meditation is kind of against that, where it's like you just be mindful of yourself. And you mentioned to me that you know a little bit about meditation, and so I was wondering how you combat that and what you think about mindfulness.
Yeah, so for meditation, for me, like it's mostly I mostly find myself in like a meditative state of like when I'm ending the day at night and I'm done with all my work, I'm showered, I brush my teeth, and I'm getting ready for bed, and I just go on my iPad and I just like read just stuff that I enjoy, but sometimes I find myself getting lost in it because I'm just so like relaxed. Or for me, I love driving, which is kind of weird maybe, but I find driving really...
I get that so much. I love driving, yeah.
Driving for me is very therapeutic and very relaxing. So I find myself in a really relaxed, calm mind, really relaxed and calm mind of state. Well, state of mind.
State of mind.
Driving, okay. Because I'm just focusing on the road and I have my favorite music on, and that's a very therapeutic, like relaxed situation for me, really.
Yeah, I relate to that so much. I love driving. I'm actually so sad because during quarantine, like I can't really go anywhere. Sometimes I'll just like get in my car and just drive around. And I feel like it's such an expensive hobby because gas is so expensive. But you know, I definitely feel that like just the calmness of the road and kind of just your music playing. And I think it's interesting that you talk about meditation as like a meditative state. So you don't actually like do kind of, I guess, traditional meditation where people like sit and kind of just turn everything off and like close their eyes and like, you know, listen to some kind of recording of someone meditating, focus on their breathing. Like that's interesting that you don't like, you think about meditation more of just kind of like a state of mind versus like the act of actually meditating.
Yeah, because I find like for me, I can't really like sit down and like just focus on my breath, but I tried that a couple times and I feel good after. But in my meditated like state of mind, I come up with wild ideas. Like I start thinking to myself, where do I want to be in the future? What do I want to do with my brand? And I just started thinking of like ideas of like what I want to add to like my my roadmap of like what I want better, healthier you to be, and that's where I get all my creative like ideas from.
That's kind of
That's
yeah. You can go.
yeah, that's interesting. Like a meditative state of mind. I haven't really thought about that. Like, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I think I do a very similar thing where at night sometimes I'll like dim the lights and I'll just pick up a book and read, or I'll like open up my phone to like my news app and just kind of go through the news, but not really reading it actively. I'm more like just dozing off and thinking, and that's where I do get most of my ideas as well. Maya, do you do something similar?
Yeah, no, I was just like, I think that I've related to this so much where just like all of my great ideas come kind of at night when I'm about to go to sleep. And then that's when I start like planning out like almost my future. And I'm like, I plan out, right? It's like, I don't know why I do that, but it's like I plan out my entire life just like in that like 30 minutes before I go to sleep. And I'm like, okay, by this age, I want to do this. And then like by this age, I want to do this. And it's like, it's so interesting how that happens. Like, it's almost like you said, that meditative state of mind where like during the day, I'm so busy and I'm doing so many things that I don't have a chance to sit down and really think about the future. And then when I'm at night and I'm alone and I have like kind of free time, that's when I really get a chance to kind of make plans and make goals for myself.
Yeah, because when I had my friend Connor on my podcast, he's really into being more spiritual now and being more mindful. And I brought up the topic of like, yeah, I feel like I'm really like in a very peaceful state of mind when I'm driving, and he's like, that can be meditation too, because meditation doesn't always have to be you sitting down and focusing on your breath and like sitting in silence. Meditation can be anytime that you are with yourself and yourself only, because he even mentioned like you can meditate at like a concert too if you wanted to, and then I thought to myself, I was like, one, I would never want to do that because I could never focus. but from what I've learned is like meditation is just being with yourself and getting with your thoughts and being relaxed.
I see. That just changed my outlook right there on meditation. I feel like I've just always had the mindset of, if I want to meditate, I need to be, like in the middle of a forest with my hands in a certain position and like certain music playing and all the stars need to align. But I really like this view. It's a more practical sort of view of just having a meditative state. And it's not like meditation requires some sort of external factor. Like you can just be in a meditative state and enjoy yourself. With that, I think that's a great closing thought. It's been around half an hour. So I think unless anyone has anything else to add, we can probably end the episode right here.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on our podcast and for having us on yours. And you can tell our audience where they can find your podcast.
Yeah, you can find my podcast, The More You Know, on any podcasting platform like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Anchor, any podcast platform that you like. For all your health and fitness tips, you can check out Better Healthier You spelled as in Y in YU, for all your health and fitness tips.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Anonymous Hedgehog is also available on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, whatever. So we'll just end it here. Thank you guys all so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks so much for having me.